Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joan Ferrini-Mundy, the president of the University of Maine and our regional campus, the University of Maine at Machias. We're delighted to be able to bring you together to this town hall to discuss particularly the questions and challenges that our faculty and staff may have, but also to really answer anything that's on your mind. And I'd like to begin by thanking the people who are on this call, both those who are on the panel that you'll be introduced to in a moment, but also those who are listening in and are here with questions. I know that the past several months have been an extraordinary challenge for all of us here at both universities, not only relative to our work at the university, but relative to our families and friends and all of the uncertainty and anxiety that comes with these very trying days as we move through this pandemic. So I start by wanting to thank everyone for your commitment to the university, for your efforts to keep work going, for your diligence in moving to remote activity and also keeping up with everything, and also for those who have needed to take a bit of a break and think about how to best continue to function as well as we possibly can in these modes. So we're coming back. We're going to be here in the fall and open. And I know that many of you are back on campus now or getting ready to do so. And we want to address all of what's on your minds in this call. With that, I'm going to introduce the interim provost, interim executive vice president and provost and dean of the undergraduate business school, Faye Gilbert, who will make a few remarks as well.
Good afternoon. I'm Faye Gilbert, Interim Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost until we welcome John Bolin at the end of this week. I'm so impressed with the efforts that the faculty and staff in particular make on this campus to help everything go well. So I'm glad to be on the town hall meeting and look forward to answering questions and really appreciate the support that the staff provide to our operations and to our faculty and to our students and to making sure that we're all well. Hope you are too.
Thank you, Faye. And with that, we'll do a quick round of introductions for those who are here on the screen, the members of my cabinet, and I'll begin with Dan Qualls.
Hey, I'm Dan Qualls. I'm the head of campus here at the University of Maine at Machias and vice president of academic affairs.
Robert Dana.
Hey folks, it's Robert Dana. I'm the Vice President for Student Life and Inclusive Excellence, both here in Orono, where I'm at, and in Machias as well.
Chris Lindstrom.
Good afternoon, I'm Chris Lindstrom. I'm Vice President of Human Resources for both campuses.
Cody.
Good afternoon, I'm Cody Vararamian, Vice President for Research and Dean of the Graduate School.
Thank you. Chris.
Hello, Chris Richards, Vice President of Enrollment Management, and work in the enrollment function with both UMaine and UMaine Machias.
Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire. I'm Chief Business Officer for the University of Maine and for the University of Maine at Machias.
And you're a UMaine alumna, it says in my notes, which
yes, I am.
But that means we've probably missed a few others along the way.
Sure.
I want to wave if you're a UMaine alum. That's been introduced already. Okay, great. Jake Ward has had to leave us. He may be able to come back in at some point. Vice President for Innovation and Economic Development. He has a simultaneous meeting. Kimberly Whitehead.
Good afternoon. I'm Kimberly Whitehead. I'm Vice President and Chief of Staff to the President. Glad to be with you here today.
Welcome. And Ken?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Ken Ralph, and I'm Director of Athletics.
Jeff Mills.
Hi, I'm Jeff Mills. I'm a Black Bear from the class of '82 and President CEO of the UMaine Foundation.
We also have Jeremy Chubbuck.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Chubbuck. I'm the Associate Executive Director of Facilities Management, and I'm also serving as the chair of the UMaine Eoc Planning Group.
Great. Dick Young.
Hello, I'm Dick Young. I'm the Associate Executive Director of Auxiliary Services and Health Liaison to the Health Center, class of '81.
Great. And Melissa McGinnis.
Hi, I'm Melissa McGinnis. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Molecular and Biomedical Sciences. I'm a virologist, and I've been serving as the lead of the Scientific Advisory Board for the UMaine system.
It's great. I think that's everybody. Have I missed anyone? Margaret Nagle, please introduce yourself too.
Hi there. I'm Margaret Nagle, Director of Public Affairs at the University of Maine.
Great. So I'm just going to make a few brief remarks. I'm hoping that Kimberly can maybe post my presentation. I don't think I have it set up to go. One moment here, please, folks. Basically, the points that we want to make here are that the amount of planning that has been going on really since mid-March, not just for the transition to everyone going online and for closing down a campus in the middle of a semester, but as soon as that planning began, so did the planning for this fall and summer and how we would respond to what is a very, in a sense, unpredictable pandemic, in that we really can't know exactly what will come next. And I can't tell you how delighted I am to be a part of the team of professionals that you see on this call and all of you out there, to recognize that this will be contingent always on what this virus does. And Melissa McGinnis will tell you later, again, I imagine how unpredictable it is, and it's kind of running the show for us in so many ways. But let me tell you a bit about what's happening. Thank you, Kimberly. If we can go to slideshow mode. You've seen the signs if you've been on campus. The signs exemplify really one piece of what I guess I'm learning to call a public health campaign, which is what we are striving to enact as we come into the opening for the fall. Because really that's what it will take to keep everyone as safe as we possibly can keep each other. This isn't only about your own behavior, about wearing face coverings, about maintaining suitable distance, about doing symptom checking and participating in testing, but it's about helping each other to do that as well. And being able to answer each other's questions or point one another to the place where we can get answers. There's a fair bit of anxiety that goes with something like this. And so we're hearing lots of questions. I want to be sure that you're aware of where you can go. But much planning is going on. As you can tell, the sign is just one exemplar of that. If we can go to the next slide, please, Kimberly. And I don't know if we can go to slide view. It's okay. We can just toggle to the next one. Thanks. Which really is just a picture of what it's been like. Those of you who have been on campus or who've been working from afar, you know this scenario, right? Teaching from Zoom, from your home, participating in multiple meetings by Zoom, or being here on campus, helping to work through all that is involved in the summer on a campus as usual, together with the preparation for fall. And I know, for example, that Jeremy and his team have been extraordinarily busy this summer getting ready for us for fall, and he'll have a moment later on to say a bit about what they've been doing. And as you look at our classrooms as they show, and our labs and our clinical settings on this second slide, we can see that under previous circumstances, those would be busy spaces with lots of people working in close proximity. It won't be like that this fall. Measures have been put in place to change pretty much everything about the way instruction happens here. And the faculty and instructional staff who are involved on this call know that there are hard planning issues to deal with relative to going to virtual formats of different kinds, figuring out which are the right scenarios for a particular faculty member, aligning that with the room spaces that are possible as we look to, as we say, de-densify the space and make sure that adequate distancing is possible in our classrooms and lecture halls, which means smaller numbers of students will be able to participate. And so there's been a fair bit of work to move around that situation and to get it sorted out. The third slide is about learning, which I just keep bringing up from time to time to remind us all that our major goal is, as a university, to engage our clientele, our students, our faculty, our staff, all of us as learners, with a particular focus on, of course, the students who are here to obtain degrees and to move on into their professional lives. And so I have used this slide to just share that I did give a talk to the Board of Trustees this summer about learning. There's a very strong tendency to focus on teaching right now because we are so engaged in trying to figure out what will work and how to use Brightspace and how to move our courses over into a mode that will enable us to offer them to students wherever they are and however they need to access them. But at the same time, the learning constant is still there. Humans actively construct information. We know that knowledge is based around prior experience and beliefs. Culture is critical, mental modeling is critical, and motivation is critical. And I'm very confident, as I've talked to a lot of faculty over the summer, that people are keeping this front and center and figuring out ways to build on these principles, even from very new modes of instruction going forward. For this talk, I used examples from some of our wonderful faculty, and so the next slide lists who they are. Maybe you can see that. We can go through that, go past that one. Great group of folks doing fabulous things, and this is a tiny sample across the campuses. At UMaine, of course, we're doing a lot of planning, as I've mentioned. This slide lists all of the different committees, in fact, not all, because there have been new ones formed even since we made the slide, all guided by our Emergency Operations Center team, these are expert folks in handling these kinds of crises that we face. And they're calm, and they're planful, and they're resourceful, and they're flexible. And this team has been taking a look at everything that we're doing, along with, of course, all of these committees that are listed on this slide. And people on the call are serving in these groups. I thank you for the work. It's extremely reassuring to know that we're thinking pretty much of everything. I'm in a lot of meetings where someone will say, hey, what are we going to do about this or that? There's always an answer. That answer may change, and we may need to take in different information, but still in all, it's happening, and that's fantastic. So a major piece of the planning, of course, for the return is testing, and you'll hear more about that in a moment, but it's beyond testing. We can go to the next slide, please. Thank you, Kimberly. Beyond testing, there is a lot of work on the physical space, on the campus, plans for fall and how we'll come together, on our various service functions, the notion of Black Bears Care, and you'll hear more from that, on that, about how we're all hoping we can all commit to helping to behave in ways that take into view the community's needs as well as our own individual needs. So it's an exciting time. It's a bit of a challenging time because, as I've said, although we have these plans, we may need to stay very vigilant about changes in the plans. So with that, I think we're going to hear from several people now, short presentations, and then we'll go into your questions. You can continue to send in questions as this proceeds, and we'll do our best to answer them. But first, let's hear on the testing. We'll hear from Melissa McGinnis about the scientific perspective. Then we'll go to Dick Young, who will talk about protocols, and then broadening this out a bit, we'll hear from Jeremy Chubbuck, who will talk about safety and the physical setup of rooms. So all of these topics in the area of safety, and we'll begin with Melissa.
Good afternoon. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So it's been a real honor to lead the Scientific Advisory Board, which has been chaired by President Ferrini-Mundy and has included faculty members from the University of Maine and the University of Southern Maine with expertise in virology, immunology, biomedical sciences, epidemiology, and biomedical engineering. And we have been utilizing our expertise to focus on the latest publications and rapid developments on COVID-19 research to provide science-based evidence to help guide the challenging decisions that we face during the pandemic. We meet twice weekly with the Fall 2020 Safe Planning team and provide regular briefings with the President and Chancellor, and have presented to various groups across campus, including facilities, the Emergency Operations Committee, and the State Legislature and Board of Trustees. We have been focusing on the transmission of the coronavirus, the mitigation and safety efforts that can help reduce the transmission, our important public health response to the virus, as well as the latest developments in vaccines and treatments. And one thing that's been really central to this response has been an effort surrounding robust testing. And this testing also has to be followed up with an isolation plan, as well as contact tracing and quarantining, so that we can help to reduce the transmission of coronavirus. So I just want to talk a little bit about how SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19, is transmitted. So when an individual is infected with coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, they can transmit the virus to others when they breathe, talk, cough, or sneeze, and they release respiratory droplets containing the virus. These droplets are released into the air, and when they're dispersed in the air, they can then land in the nose, mouth, and possibly in the lungs of another individual within close proximity. Additionally, these droplets can fall on surfaces or objects, and then when we touch these surfaces and objects without washing our hands, we can then transfer them into our nose and mouth directly. So we have been providing science-based evidence to various groups on campus to help inform some of the policies and procedures for introducing things like physical distancing into our spaces and the use of face coverings and improving the ventilation systems, the importance of hand hygiene and cleaning practices. And these guidelines are really essential to help reduce virus transmission. And Jeremy Chubbuck is going to present later and discuss all of the university's efforts on these areas in just a bit. But what can we do to help keep our communities safe? What can we do to keep our campus safe? One thing that we can start doing is avoiding the 4 C's. And this is based off of the Japan's 3 C's campaign, and the Scientific Advisory Board modified it to call it the 4 C's. So the 4 C's are closed spaces, crowded places, close contacts, and contact time. So we can think about how we're interacting in closed spaces, ensure that we're wearing face coverings, avoid crowded places, and avoid close contact with people. So we wouldn't want to be hugging bananas, and also reducing our contact time with individuals. So if we can avoid the 4 C's, then we can significantly reduce transmission. In addition to these public safety measures, the university is also committed to the successful approach of test, trace, isolate to manage COVID-19. And this approach has been successful in flattening the curve around the globe, and this is really essential as well on our campus locally. So this follows the approach of test to provide rapid, high throughput diagnostic testing for COVID-19, and then tracing, which is contact tracing of anyone that's been in contact with someone that has COVID-19. A contact is defined as someone that's within 6 feet or closer for 15 minutes or more. Anyone that has COVID-19 would be isolated so that they would be removed from the population, and anyone that was a possible contact would also be quarantined. And this is really essential to help reduce the transmission of SARS-CoV-2. In addition to this, we have to be able to test in order to determine who is infected with COVID-19. And this is important for individuals who are showing symptoms, that would be symptomatic people, but also for asymptomatic people. And the reason why testing for asymptomatic individuals is important is because when SARS-CoV-2 infects someone, there's a long incubation period, and it can last for up to 14 days. During this time, someone may feel healthy, and they may be moving about campus, and they could spread the virus to others without knowing it. This is known as a pre-symptomatic period. In addition, some people may never develop symptoms. They could be entirely asymptomatic, or they could have very mild symptoms, so they may not know that they're ill. And during this time, we can be transmitting the virus to others. Then people can become symptomatic, and at that time, they would be showing symptoms. They would go to their healthcare center, and they would be tested, and if they were positive, they would be isolated, and their contacts would be quarantined. But we want to ensure that we don't have the spread of SARS coronavirus on our campus, and so we want to test asymptomatic individuals, and we want to screen individuals as they're arriving to campus. And Dick Young's going to talk more about the logistics of this asymptomatic testing. Our testing plan is comprehensive, and it includes baseline testing when people are arriving on our campuses. And it also includes symptomatic testing for individuals who are feeling ill and go to their healthcare centers. After this initial baseline testing, which is going to happen through a partnership with Convenient MD and the Jackson Laboratory, in which Convenient MD will take the sample and send it to the Jackson Laboratory and their CLIA certified lab in Connecticut, and then provide results back to the individual, to the campus, and also to the Maine CDC if someone is to test positive. In addition to this testing, we'll have COVID-19 surveillance testing that will include individual asymptomatic testing, and also wastewater monitoring. And wastewater monitoring is actually possible because the virus can infect the GI tract and the virus is shed in the feces. And therefore you can detect the presence of the virus genetic material in the wastewater. And when we start to see an increase in the virus genetic material in the wastewater, this can indicate that there could be potential cases on campus, and then we can activate a public health plan. In addition, we'll be tracking the prevalence within our own communities to help inform all of these plans. And Dick Young is going to talk in just a bit about the logistics of testing. These are the individuals that have served on the Scientific Advisory Board, and it's just been such an honor to work with all of them. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to contact any of us.
And before we go on, there have been a couple of questions on testing that I thought we might introduce right here to stay close to this presentation. But one of them has to do with notification, and Melissa, you mentioned it, and you can say more, and or Dick can too. Will we, that is faculty and staff, be notified if a student is COVID positive? Who will notify the student's instructors? So I don't know if we want to leave that to Dick to bring up in his next remarks.
I can speak to that quickly if you'd like.
Yeah,
we have the EOC is our group on campus that is overseeing the implementation of the quarantine, isolation, and communication pathways of positive cases. And through that EOC, there is a group that's set up. We call it the Rapid Response Team. And they all will receive notification of a positive case, and then the actual communication will go up through our particular call trees that we all have. Mine in particular will be going up through to Vice President Dana, who then will take it to the senior administration and the president's office. And from there, the provost would be notified, who then would go down through to the deans and down to the faculty member if need be. We look at this as a need-to-know basis. I know that alarms people when we say that, but we do have HIPAA requirements we have to maintain and other security we do. But that information will pass through the pathways that I mentioned, and it will get to the proper people that need to know of the case.
Good. And another one, Dick, that I'm going to turn to you as well. A Maine student moves into the dorm. He needs to take a COVID test. And does he quarantine in his dorm room until the test results come back? And can they take the test before they move up here?
The answer to that question is they will need to quarantine in their room after they get the test here on campus. Once they arrive, they all been given an arrival date and a test time. It is the same date and time to move in. Once they move into the residence hall room and get settled, they will be under a quarantine until the test results are returned from Jackson Lab. That's been running about 30 to 35 hours right now, but we got till 48 hours. We're thinking it'll be somewhere in that range, and they'll be notified of the results. In terms of getting a test from off campus and arriving with it, is that what the question was? If I came with my results?
Yeah.
If you come with your results, you still would have to go to the residence halls and move in. At that time, we're making arrangements with Residential Life where that individual or the other roommate, we've to make a determination how that's going to work. But one of those two would not be able to room together. Someone who has a known negative with someone who does not have a known positive or negative, we wouldn't be able to room those two individuals together for that quarantine period.
Dick, I think we should let you go straight into your presentation, some of which you've now already perhaps mentioned, but Dick is here to talk to us about the testing procedures and protocols.
Thank you, President Ferrini-Mundy. I will start with that. I'll share my screen here, I hope. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about the testing protocols and logistics. I've been working very closely with Melissa and the Scientific Advisory Board, as well as with the EOC in developing it. A lot of what I'm going to talk to you about today are things that have come out of those discussions, and I am kind of the face and the one to deliver it to you. I'm not the one that created all these, but I will go through it for you to give you an idea what we're doing. I think the number one thing to point out with testing, which Melissa alluded to, is that the mitigating factors are the social distance and face masks. Those are the two things we can do very easily, and those prevent a large percentage of the spread of the COVID SARS virus. So again, just to highlight that here in the first slide, those are key things we need to put in place. Testing is good to find out what we have for prevalence in the community, but to maintain the spread, the mask and 6 feet are critical to that. The other picture you see here quickly is just one of our local testing sites here on campus. It's the Alfond Arena. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that's where we are providing testing right now to 3 cohorts of groups have gone through since July 22nd. One thing to keep in mind is when we put this together is that the University of Maine system protocols are a little more stringent than the state of Maine. Obviously, we're testing every student that comes regardless of the state that they come from. So if you have an out-of-state address in our Main Street, we will be notifying you of testing you prior to coming to campus. We put together 3 distinct cohorts for that. The one is the off-campus group, which is out-of-state off-campus students who are at least enrolled in at least 1 credit of face-to-face class or more. The second group is our residential campus living students, and we will be testing there all in-state and out-of-state students who live in our residence halls. And then the third cohort of special groups, primarily the ones who may be going out, student teachers. We have nursing students who go out in the community. We have res life staff who are embedded or live right into the residence halls with the students. We have fraternities who have been added to that list, and we'll be working with that group as well. New faculty and graduate assistants coming from out of state are also included in that list. The numbers I've given you fluctuate up and down, but we're close within those ranges of doing around 5 to 5.5, close to 5,500 students that will be tested here by the time we get to the end of August. This is the logistics and staging. We have 2 sites on campus that will be providing the testing. I mentioned earlier that the Alfond Arena is one of the local sites that we use here, and that's for our special groups. You see it pictured here of a great waiting area. It's a great setup. Athletics did a wonderful job of setting up the facility with us. We did testing there this morning of 71 people. We did that in less than 2 hours. These are all nasal swabs that we're taking for samples, and then they will go to Jackson Labs. So Melissa alluded to the relationship we have. We take these samples. Convenient MD, you see here, is our medical provider who takes the samples. They place them in a tube, and then they're placed on a bed of ice, shipped to Jackson Labs in Farmington, Connecticut, and then they are processed. And like I said, it's about 30 hours, and 11 of those hours that I'm speaking to currently are the actual hours to transport the samples to Farmington. So once they get there, they will have the results, and they will report those back to us in a manifest, all negative results. If there is a positive result, that will be phone called to the Maine CDC as well as to the university. And once that's, and thirdly, and most importantly, the student themselves or the faculty member or staff member will also receive a call from Convenient MD stating that they have a positive result. Once that has occurred, that will, again, depending on what we have in terms of a student or a faculty, they will all be informed and connected with the CDC. We then will talk to them about the requirements of isolation, and also of the steps that will take place in isolation, which will mean daily calls from the Maine CDC for symptom checks, and as well as that for the next 14 days, and keep an eye to make sure whether symptoms develop. Again, as Melissa said, asymptomatic is a true case that happens with this virus. So some people will go into quarantine, have a positive test, but never have symptoms. There'll be others who go into positive tests who may have symptoms. So we'll be monitoring each of those to ensure that the safety of them, and if the things change in their health status, then the necessary steps will be taken with the healthcare system to get them taken care of. Once we have the drive-through tent is for a large group at the end of the month. So when we talk about the 24th to 29th, we'll be testing up there roughly about 5,500 students over that course of the 24th to the 29th. It'll be a drive-through tent. You can see a picture here alluding to that just kind of gives you an overview. This is not the tent that we'll be using, but giving you some idea of what that will be. It's a 6-bay tent. This is a 3-bay tent, 4. So 6 bays. So we should be able to go through that large group pretty well and finish up each day with doing roughly about 900 students a day to get through the week. Convenient MD has been doing close to 600 to 700 tests daily at UNH over the last week. And so they're a great experienced provider. They know how to run these tests. They work very closely with them. Their logistics are very good. They get a handle on organizing all that. We will have also the ones who come from out of state with a test result. They themselves will have to go through the tent to pass those results, and Convenient MD, being a medical provider, will verify that the test is the correct test. RT-PCR test taken within 72 hours of their arrival to campus. So once that's cured, they all will be given a colored wristband, which will notify the Res Life staff that the individual has been tested and that they were able to go into the residence hall. So the checkpoint is the wristband. If they do not have that, they'll be turned back to the testing facility to be tested by the Res Life staff, and we'll follow that back through to ensure that everybody who goes in the residence hall in terms of a student will be tested. In terms of the actual process of security, once they complete the test, they're all sealed in the cooler. There's a manifest that started the day to make sure everyone who was on the list was tested. There's another manifest that's checked to that goes into the actual cooler to make sure that each test that was taken is also in the correct cooler, and that is sealed. Once that's sealed, it will be picked up and taken to the Jackson lab for processing. Once again, we mentioned earlier, as I answered before, we're waiting for results. The student would have to quarantine in the residence halls. This quarantine area would be overseen by the Res Life staff. They will, as in all quarantine areas, with this being that they are asymptomatic, unknown positives, they will be able to pick up their meals in a controlled fashion with face masks and social distancing at the dining commons. And then we will also work with them to give them at least some outside time. Res Life has that worked out on how that will be in terms of organization to ensure for the safety factors of face masks as well as social distancing. Sorry. Again, the test results within 24 to 48 hours of what we're going on. On those big days, we're running three runs to the lab in Farmington. And so they'll be quite often. So we should get results back in a fairly quick time with that structure. They do process the results on the weekend. So anything that goes down on the Friday before will be continued processed through the weekend. So the goal is to get everyone tested prior to that Monday opening. Worked with Res Life and with the EOC of adjusting the testing schedule. We moved the 30th date and rescheduled those students who were scheduled on the 30th. So now Sunday is not a testing day. So that gives us another 24 hours to get the test results back prior to that Monday class to ensure we can get the most students into their classes to start the week. The negative results will go into a secure portal, which are accessible by the University of Maine staff that need to know, and the EOC. Those will be not communicated directly to the actual student. They will have access to the portal, and they can go in and set up a password to go in to see their result. That information will be provided to them. But in terms of positive response, there is notification. Again, as I mentioned, it goes all the way through to the campus and to the CDC. We have 2 quarantine isolation spaces set up on campus to support the testing and also the symptomatic findings we have on campus. Bowman Nelson, which is a separate house, is for the isolation. There is no communication in the ventilation system. There's no communication between the buildings on the DTAV housing complex. These are separate buildings. So we have 50 spaces in Bowman Nelson for isolation. And then Knox, 1st and 2nd floors for quarantine. And that space is for people who are most likely waiting for a test result. If they are, or if they are close contact, they would be someone who would go there until the test result was known. And then they would quarantine there for 14 days. Each one of these sites have been set up with dining services. Meals will be delivered. Student has the ability to order those meals online. That's being set up, and we'll be able to do that. In terms of engagement, Res Life has 3 graduate assistants that are coming on board. 2 of them will be assigned to our campus, 1 to the off-campus students, and they'll be in daily contact with these students in isolation and quarantine to ensure that they're engaged, to ensure that they have the academic needs, to ensure they have the things they need to continue to be involved in campus. If those are unavailable, because you know they're going right from the health center right into the quarantine space or into the isolation space, we've asked each student to put together a go kit, and that go kit would have the necessary items like change of clothing, maybe some books, maybe some academic support material. And we've got that worked out to deliver that to them so they can stay engaged in classes. Counseling center services are available to them through Zoom. They also have services for student accessibility if there's accommodations that need to be named. And we also will make sure that the communication is made back through to the academic side to make sure that if they are out of class, the instructors, the professors, and also the deans know that student is isolated or quarantined. I put 2 links here that are up on the Maine Return website. One of them has to do with the actual quarantine spaces, what the difference between isolation and quarantine is. I think that's a good piece to go out and look at there. And the other one has to do with the actual COVID testing procedures and what that entails on testing. Both those are found on links off the site. I don't know if I can live here. So that's what I have. Is there any question? I'd be happy to take questions about the quarantine, icing, and logistics with testing. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dick. Very good, comprehensive presentation. There are a few questions. I also would point out that this process of testing is going on across the University of Maine system. It looks different on each campus, being handled a bit differently. And we may ask in a few minutes Dan Qualls if he has anything at this point to add about how this will look at Machias, because it will be a bit different. But before that, Dick, a couple of questions for you. How will we enforce testing of all commuter students? And a related question, what might the process and procedure look like for off-campus students getting tested initially as we arrive?
Okay, so all commuter students would fall under the out-of-state cohort group. If they have out-of-state addresses, they would be in that group, and they would go through the normal test. If they are an off-campus student from the state of Maine, where the low spread rate, and get the right word here, I'm drawing a blank, Melissa may have to come up with that for me, but we have a very low rate here in the state of Maine, so therefore they aren't considered in the high-risk group at this point in time. In terms of, what was the other part of the question, Joan, so I can hit it? I'm sorry.
Oops, we already were.
Okay.
It's gone. And yeah, just how will that work during, what's the process like for the off-campus students? And it sounds like it's the same as what you've described.
Same, and if the students who we have the manifest, the ones who do not show or don't, we will be going back through and contacting those students and making arrangements. We have days in the 1st of September for days that have been available to us to get those students to get tested. The goal is to test everybody that's on the manifest that's been identified as an off-campus, out-of-state student. So we'll work very hard to ensure they get through the testing process.
Perfect. Is there an option for testing if a person does not have a car during the tent testing period?
Yes, we'll have an option for those to go through the testing process as a walk-up. We're in the process of working that out as we speak.
Right. Testing protocols for non-degree students. I heard you say that a student taking 1 credit is enough to bring them into these lists, yes?
1 credit and out-of-state address is what we're using for off-campus students, and then resident hall students, people living in the residence halls, both in-state and out-of-state.
Mm-hmm. If a student tests positive and wishes to go home to finish their semester there, rather than quarantine on campus, is that possible?
We've gone through with Res Life, we're working through those protocols, but as always, the university would not stand in the way of a family request. We would work with the family, also educate them to understand if the person obviously is waiting for test results, we would prefer them to stay here in quarantine, and we would educate on that. But again, we would work with each case individually based on what we get for information.
And I think in some ways that's the answer to another question here, that is the who needs to know when a student tests positive. You've described the sort of formal notifications, and the way that they get described, it sounds like a big chain, but that'll happen very, very rapidly, of course. And the need to know, I am assuming, depends upon the students and their circumstances and whether they live on campus or not, and whether they're taking everything online or not. Those will be case by case, I assume.
Case by case, and we will, as I said, there's already a list of need to know put in place all the way up to the president, down through the provost and through the deans, as well as the student life side with Vice President Dana. And once that is all known, those individuals would make the decision based on that of who needs to be notified from the faculty point of view and down through.
Terrific. Thank you, Dick. Thanks. Let's go now to Jeremy Chubbuck, who will give us his presentation. And this is about safety considerations, fall classroom setup, everything we can expect to see on the campus as we get closer. Jeremy.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining in. And I, too, am going to share my screen if I can do this without messing it up too badly. Okay, so I've got 10 slides I'm going to go through, and I'm going to bounce back and forth a little bit. I'm going to try to go through it a little more quickly maybe than I did last week, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago, when we went through this. Some materials changed. As the president mentioned earlier, things change fairly quickly, as a matter of fact, and have been. And so I've updated this slideshow accordingly. So as you can see here, just bear in mind as we go through it, we have setups I'm going to be talking about. This happens to be a picture of the CCA setup currently. This is a picture of one of the signs we have in the buildings. A second picture here as well on the side, and then of course the black bear. So the EOC Planning Committee, I thought I'd share with everybody who all made up the EOC Planning Committee. It's not any one group. It's a culmination of a number of different folks, ranging from student life, human resources, auxiliaries. We had folks from research, athletics, safety management from systems was there. Machias joined us as well, UMPD and others. And then of course we had the town of Orono, as a matter of fact, involved with Rob St. Louis's involvement. And so we were able to tackle this problem basically through not just one lens, but through many lenses through the course of time. And again, this group was stood up sometime in the early part of the pandemic. The EOC stood up sometime during the very tail end, very tail end of February, very beginning of March, and then the planning group stood up at the very beginning of April. And we've been working steadily since the very beginning of April on this. So some specific items that we've done in the rooms. In rooms and buildings, we've installed plexiglass hygiene barriers. We've had over 550 that we've assembled and installed in different rooms throughout campus. And these are like what you'd see if you go to a bank or go to a store, in areas where there has to be close contact between, say, a student, customer, and someone from the university, where you can't really socially distance. And so we've installed those hygiene barriers in places, in any number of places. And one great example would be the central supply stockroom here in facilities management, where folks come in, they purchase items for use on campus, and you can't really socially distance to hand items back and forth. So we have one set up there as an example. We have a number of social distancing signs that have gone up on campus. One of my favorites I've included here is the mask. I call it the mask in the lower right-hand corner. And it's for your safety and safety of others, a face covering is required on to be worn. And also the stay safe 6 feet apart distance sign as well. You'll see those in a number of places on campus. The library comes to mind, the union, and elsewhere. And it's like what you'd see again if you go to a store where it's meant to keep people 6 feet apart as a reminder. They're stuck on the floor and elsewhere. Office disinfectant wipes. So we're in the process of receiving in a number of office, I don't recall off the top of my head how many, but it's a large number of office disinfectant wipes. And these are the disinfectant wipes that will go to individual offices. So if you have an office, if you're a staff or a faculty person, you have an office like the one that you see me in, you'll have a disinfectant wipe set up for your office. That'll be provided to you by the university. Those are all due in at the end of next week, as a matter of fact. They're coming in stages. And so it's going to be just in time. As everybody can imagine, these are very difficult times to order in supplies. And we've had these on order for quite some time now, and they're due in next week, the end of next week. Supplemental hand sanitizer stations. This is a picture of one of the 300 that we've ordered up here on the right-hand corner. We ordered 300 supplemental ones. Now these will supplement the existing ones that are already out and about on campus. These hold about a gallon of hand sanitizer. They're touchless. You walk up to them, they're a photo optic sensor, and you just hold your hand underneath it, and it dispenses hand sanitizer. These are being placed in any number of places on campus, major areas. For instance, the entrance to Little Hall, as an example, is 4 major classrooms at the main lobby of Little Hall. One will be there. There's, the library will have at least one. The union will have several. So again, there's 300 of those being placed out on campus for everybody to use. Face covering signage and dispensers. Again, my favorite sign here. And also there's approximately 80 or so face covering dispensers. And what those aren't dispensers for the reusable face coverings that we all have been issued or in the process of being issued. These are dispensers for individually wrapped face coverings. If a student comes or if someone comes to campus and they forgot their face covering at home, instead of going all the way back home to get it and disrupting class, these are going to be available in the main areas of major classroom areas for folks to quickly go out, grab an individually wrapped disposable face covering and return back to class. So you'll see these out and about when you come back to campus if you haven't seen them already. Some of these, so the dispensers, some are going to be fairly last minute. Again, they've been on order for some time, and the majority of them will be in at the end of the week before or the week that students come back. So the week before they start. The coverings themselves are in, which is good news. Seating arrangements. So I'm going to show you a little bit more about that in a minute. And then building ingress and egress plans and signage. So Ryan Ward and his team have been working very hard with a number of folks on campus to develop ingress and egress plans and place signage up in the areas in the different buildings that have special ingress and egress. And as an example, this is a picture of an exit only sign. And the intent here will be to try to prevent cross traffic flow, to try to maximize the amount possible one-way flow in a building for ingress and one-way flow for egress, so that folks don't have to pass each other in the hallway. Obviously, it goes without saying that if there's a fire alarm or an emergency, all ingress and egress points are egress points. I've been asked that question. So some classroom specific items I just thought I'd share real quick. In addition to the wipes that are being provided individually for offices, we're going to be providing every classroom on campus with its own disinfectant wipe for the classroom. Those will be used by occupants of the classroom, whether it's students or others, that are welcome to use them to clean their own desks if they wish, or their own chairs between classes, and for other disinfecting needs. Additionally, this is a picture of a seating arrangement where we set up one of the classrooms that we set up for social distancing. We have about 310 classrooms on campus that we looked at and set up for social distancing. And that involved either moving or labeling over 7,000 pieces of furniture. And major kudos to Doug Sear and his crew, who basically spent a better part of the summertime doing that. And so you'll see in this picture as a great example, these chairs and desks have been socially distanced. And in the background, you'll see that there's chairs that are stored. One item that you don't see in the picture is, because we had this picture taken before we had the stickers, but these chairs in the back will be labeled. They'll be labeled, please do not remove due to coronavirus. And that's because they're being stored in the back of the room. So some operational items I thought I'd just share with folks that's equally as important is we're in the process of staffing up with a supplemental custodial touchpoint cleaning crew. The purpose of this crew is not meant to do normal custodial cleaning such as trash can emptying or vacuuming or that sort of thing. It's meant to focus on just touchpoint cleaning and disinfecting. So doorknobs, water fountains, any number of things that are high touch point areas. And at this point, we're trying to staff up with about 12 people to supplement the existing custodial crew and the work that they do. They already do for cleaning. So that crew will be working campus-wide days throughout the day. So we don't have to wait for a second shift to come in and do cleaning. And while I'm on the touch point cleaning crew, another very important fact that I want to share with people real quick is on all the hand sanitizer stations, on all of the face covering stations, on all the wipe dispensers, there's going to be a little sticker that says, if this is found to be empty, please call this number or please contact this number. It's 581-2649, which is the 24/7 custodial line, and they'll dispatch a touch point cleaning person to ensure that those are filled. Part of their job is to make sure that those items will remain filled throughout the day. But if one does get depleted, then obviously then it can be called in and refilled quickly. We're also going to do frequent rotation of COVID-19 safety signage. So we have 7 or 8 different flavors of signage that we're going to be placing throughout time on campus. And the idea there is to keep the message fresh. So if you walk by a sign 3 times or 4 times, you start to ignore it. But if it changes, maybe folks will notice it. And so that's kind of a subtle strategy, but it's something that we're going to be putting in place. Also, the HVAC shop and the electric shop have been working diligently throughout the summertime, since the very beginning of summer, late spring, early summer, on servicing all the building HVAC and ventilation systems. This includes the over 400 building HVAC systems, the restroom ventilations, elevator ventilations, and other space ventilations. Their task is to do a couple things. One is to make sure everything is functioning as it should, to restore it or ensure that it's that the systems are functioning to factory spec, make sure that it's properly serviced, so the filter changes and all that, but also to favor makeup air from the outside to improve makeup air over our normal mode, which is energy conservation. So we're favoring makeup air, fresh air from the outside over energy conservation as they go through these systems. We're also, we went through actually 2 rounds of flushing of the potable water systems, both on campus, and the Orono-VZ Water District flushed the town system earlier. And additionally, the custodial group has been back since the very beginning of July, and so the water systems in the buildings have been naturally flushed as well. So that's meant to keep water from stagnating in a situation where normally these buildings remain active and the water doesn't stagnate. And finally, I also added just a little bit of an operational item. If folks haven't heard, everybody's going to receive a wellness kit, which will include a sanitizer bottle, a door opener, a card holder, a bag, and a face covering. Those are in the process. They were just finished assembled a week or so ago, and they're in the process of being passed out right now. And those should be out to everybody by the end of next week. So kudos to everybody that's working on this. There's a big logistical effort on that as well. So I thought I'd just share with you real quick a couple additional planning committee items that we've been working on or have worked on that aren't necessarily specific to any building or safety items, but that are really relevant to the work, that are relevant to the return of folks to campus. We've had already 2 videos. I don't know, hopefully everybody's had a chance to see them. They're on the YouTube channel. Faculty and staff, welcome back. That came out July 1st. And then also on July 24th, there was a student welcome back first video. Major thank you to Margaret and Ron Lisnett and her folks for all the hard work they put in. They're excellent videos, very informative. So I'd encourage everybody to have a look at those if you haven't seen them already. And also we're planning on sometime mid this month and late this month, developing 2 more videos. A little more specific welcome back video, and then a more specific safety video for students as they return. Also, I'll show you a picture here in a quick minute. We've been working diligently on the transportation van and logistics, and that again is coupling with what Dick said here a little bit ago, to transport students that maybe came in contact with a positive case or someone that needs to be transported from one place to another due to coronavirus needs. And so there's a lot involved with that. I'll just show you a quick picture of that here in a minute. So Doug and his crew have been working very hard on that. We have a special van set aside for that. We've been assisting with the isolation space logistics. You know, how do we service the space once it's occupied by someone that's isolating, let's say, and how do you do this and how do you do that? I won't explain everything because there's a lot to it, but the gist of it is there's a lot involved with just creating an isolation space, and we've worked through those logistics. We've also talked about post-return planning and logistics, and I'll just share one example of what that might look like. And so let's say school is going on and everything is rolling on, and all of a sudden we have a power outage. How do you manage a power outage during a coronavirus isolation situation? And so we've worked on that this summertime, and we've worked with local authorities, and we ended up coming up with a solution. So that's just one example. Maine Hello, this week and a half or so from now, 2 weeks from now, we'll be instituting our logistics. And again, I'll show you some more on that in a minute. And then, of course, support of the EOC functions with material ordering and distribution. And then probably one of the more challenging items, again, is remaining current on DECD and CDC guidance, which seemed to change almost weekly throughout the summertime as we went through it. So real quick, a couple pictures of our transportation van. This is our front part of the transportation van, and this is the back part showing a special sealed wall that we purchased and had installed by the dealership on one of our motor pool vans. And that's to keep the driver safe and also to keep the passengers safe as we transport coronavirus issued students or folks. Maine Hello Logistics, I'll just share real quick. Dick showed a picture of a tent that was similar. This happens to be the tent or a graphic of the tent that we plan on using. It'll be a 6-bay drive-through tent. It's going to be in the Hilltop parking lot. The planning group assisted with logistics on that, and also the Maine Hello. And a major shout out to Claude Junkins and Doug Sear again for the classroom occupancy review and the setup work that was done. And it's probably hard for everybody to see, but this is a picture of the CCA or HALC, I'm sorry. And it shows CCA lower level, and it shows all of the blue seats versus the black seats. Probably really hard to see on the computer, but they figured out the spacing and set that up. So a final slide real quick. I'll just bring everybody's attention to these 3 last bullet items. And the most important thing is if I haven't heard anything else I've said today, please listen to this one item. The very first item is, if you have any questions about returning to campus, ideas, concerns, suggestions, please contact the um.eoc@maine.edu email. We're funneling all questions through that email address so that we can remain consistent in what we tell people. We all review that and we try to answer that back as quickly as we can. If you email me directly, because I receive many emails after these presentations, I've received many emails, I'll get back to you as soon as I can, but likely I'll still funnel that question through the EOC email. So please, if you have any questions, funnel it through there. Also, if you have any requests for PPE or COVID-19 materials, for an example, if we've missed one spot where there needs to be a hygiene barrier, for instance, just go to the UMaine police website. Underneath the EOC, there's a supplies request form, and just say, hey, I'm Jeremy Chubbuck and I need to have a hygiene barrier in my office, please. And that will get processed. And then finally, 2 last things. There is an FAQ webpage. If you're not watching that frequently, I would draw your attention to it, to watch it very frequently. And that is the maine.edu, not the UMaine, but the maine.edu/together website. That's where all of the master FAQs exist. And a lot of good information is updated almost daily there. And so I would encourage everybody to keep an eye on that. As the situation changes, those FAQs are updated. And then finally, the Who Knew It training. I'll refer everybody to the Who Knew It training underneath the Academy training program. There's a module in there called the UMS Return to Campus Plan to Reopen Fall 2020. It's a 15-minute training, and I encourage everybody to look at that because it will answer many questions preemptively. It's its own FAQ.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Tremendous amount of information packed in that set of slides, so people may wish to go back and look at them. I'm going to pass on a couple of questions right now that are related, that I think you touched on some of this, Jeremy, so we'll turn them to you anyway. Someone asked about any cleaning happening between classes when scheduled back-to-back in a room. What will be the recommended processes? What are the students responsible for, the faculty, the TAs? What if there are no supplies? Are the cleaning protocols the same for all surfaces? And has this been considered with the time allowed for class changes? Lots of questions in there, but you get a sense of the concern. I think people wondering what happens in the classrooms where they are working and teaching. Yep.
Sure. So I gave kind of like a 25,000-foot overview of everything, all of our planning. And so I'm going to dive down to about the 10,000 foot to try to answer that conglomerate of questions concisely. So there's really two types of classrooms. There's the classroom that's used once a day, every other day or something. And then there's the classroom that the question refers to that's used back to back to back to back every day, virtually all day long, almost every day. Those are two different cleaning scenarios. The first cleaning scenario, so the answer is yes, we've reviewed both of those. We reviewed that question. The first scenario is yes, we plan on cleaning between classes, and that will be done through, for the first type of classroom, that will be done through our normal cleaning process where we clean and disinfect using our custodial staff. Because if it's done, let's say it's Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock in the afternoon as the class that gets done at 3, and it's not used again until Thursday, which that is the case on many classrooms, then our normal cleaning process will pick that up. On the other end of the spectrum, there's again the classrooms that are back to back to back where there's no opportunity to do that. And that's probably well over half the classrooms, I'm guessing. I don't have the list directly in front of me still, but it's a large number of classrooms. And the answer is kind of. So our strategy is obviously to maintain our normal custodial cleaning routine that we normally do, cleaning and disinfecting with second and third shift. Additionally, we're going to be supplementing the cleaning on touch point areas such as doorknobs, water fountains, any of those places, high touch point areas with our supplemental touch point cleaning crew. However, in classrooms where it's simply not possible for any number of reasons, logistically or staff-wise, to get into between classes, this is why we've set up the wipe stations for students, where we're going to welcome students and occupants of the classrooms to use the wipes to disinfect their own seating and desks as they can.
Great, thank you. Also a question about bringing food and drink into classrooms.
So at this point in time, I have not seen a CDC recommendation not to do that. So I would maybe turn this either to Melissa or Dick or someone else that maybe knows better about that, but I am unaware of prohibition other than any normal rule that might exist by a professor with food and drink in their classroom.
I can just jump in and try to answer that. So students will be required to wear face coverings at all times, and that includes in the classroom. So the only time that you can remove a face covering is when you are eating or drinking. And it's asked that students do that in a designated area, not in a classroom. Because if they do it in a classroom, then they would be putting everyone that's surrounding them at risk.
Okay, so we'll need to be clear about that. So there are many questions. We won't be able to get to them all. We've got roughly 30 minutes. So we'll move quickly through them. There are a number of questions about testing. I'm going to hold those for a moment because we haven't talked much about some of the employee questions that are coming in. So here are a couple. What are the plans to keep adjuncts employed or not? And then a second question. It has come to my attention that numerous UMaine staff were laid off permanently on July 31st, August 1st with little or no notice to them or their supervisors. We understand things are tough. Don't our staff and workers deserve better treatment and more notice? So I'll take up both of those. Our budget situation is indeed challenged by the pandemic, but our budget situation has been challenged for a while. And everyone involved in all budget-related and personnel-related planning, I believe, is making the best possible and most sound decisions that can be made. It is true that a very small number of faculty were given notice recently. Most of those cases, long planned or in process kinds of planning, following proper procedures from our HR folks. And so there are not plans for massive layoffs. There is the usual dynamic ebb and flow that happens in a university at all times. And supervisors are well aware of any procedures that are needed as we go forward. So I hope if you have specific questions, you will speak to your supervisors about that. Related question has to do with testing of faculty and and the adjunct question. Again, our usual planning as we look at our enrollments, we look at course demands, we look at the needs across our departments through the colleges. Those are handled in the same way as always, with deans and others being responsible for planning their staffing to suit what their course offerings will be and what their students' needs will be. So we don't see any big change there. There was a question related to this that I need to find that had to do with, oh, here's one I can answer quickly. Why are we sending the tests out of state? Why aren't they being processed in Bar Harbor? It's actually the Connecticut JAX facility that has the proper laboratory facilities and clearances and so forth to do this testing. The Bar Harbor facility does not have that. Is that right, Melissa?
That's absolutely right.
Okay, good, got one. There was a question about electing to continue to work remotely, and I'm trying to find that now here, wait a minute. Again, your personal work situation needs to be something that you discuss with your supervisor. I'll turn to Chris to say more about this, but we do understand that there are certain jobs that can be managed and that have been managed in the past several weeks at distance and remotely. And so again, it's a matter of employees speaking with supervisors to determine if their work can effectively be done at high quality remotely. We want to be very mindful of the fact that we are bringing back a campus full of students, and there are some jobs that are very difficult to do remotely at all layers of this system. Chris, is there more you'd care to add to that?
I just build on what you said. It is striking that balance of making sure that we're staffed appropriately on campus to deliver services to students and coworkers, as well as the communities that rely on a certain level of campus presence. But we have a number of situations where we are able to continue operations with individuals working remotely. It works appropriately for the department and the individual. Then the last thing I would add to that is Jeremy in his notes referenced the Return to Campus training guide that's available on the Return to Campus website. I would encourage folks to look at that. And within that guide, there is a link. If we first encourage individuals to, if they've got a question or concern about their work situation and work arrangements, returning to campus or working remote, whatever it may be, that they speak with their supervisor. But in that guide, if there's a reason why they are concerned about addressing a certain situation or a personal matter with their supervisor, there's a questionnaire they can answer in that guide, and it'll send a message directly to my team and the HR department, and one of the members of my team will reach out to the individual employee to discuss the situation, and then ultimately work with them and their supervisor to find a solution that works for all parties.
Thank you, Chris. There's quite a lot of interest, a number of testing questions and questions around how and when faculty who might be at risk if they've been in contact with a student who's found to have the disease, how will they be notified? Will they be promptly notified? I have great confidence in the processes that Dick Young and team have in place for that. The goal here is to keep everyone as safe as we possibly can. And so that prevails all the way through. And I think we need to trust that our systems will keep that front and center also. There are several questions about move-in. So I'm going to turn to Robert in a moment. Some of them are quite detailed. With the 10 a.m., for example, with a 10 a.m. arrival test time, and you go to the dorm room after the testing is done to bring your stuff to the room, does the student have to stay in the room while her roommate brings their things in? Can the student leave the room to come outside and say goodbye or walk around with the family while the roommate is unloading in the room? How will quarantining on campus be enforced? That's a few, Robert. Perhaps a bit more of a picture of what move-in looks like from the perspective of an individual student and her family.
Okay, well, first of all, it's good to have so much of the staff here. And I do want to say, as somebody who's I'm a staff member, and I got a lot of staff members who work for us. And I just want to say, from my own perspective, your safety is as essential as student safety and as essential as faculty safety. So we'll all be watching out for that. And everything we're doing on the student side really is to translate to the safety of the whole community. But moving in is going to be different this year. No, nobody's going to be a prisoner of residence life. People, of course, will be free to move. When people arrive on campus, we're going to limit the load in the residence hall so they're not, if any of you have been to Maine, hello, you know, we usually have a big crowd and lots of people moving back and forth. That won't happen this year, and certainly people can go out and say goodbye to their loved ones and vacate the room as their roommate is moving in as well. So it'll all be sensible. I would call it common. We'll use common sense as well, and most of the public health procedures that we're following are common sense. So we'll try to be sensible and reasonable, and but it won't be. I won't call it a lockdown. That's not language I would use.
No, thank you. And so you're getting a sense as you listen to everyone, I hope, that there's a kind of Interim Provost Gilbert has talked about repeatedly the importance of compassion and flexibility. Those really are watchwords for us in all of this, but everyone's well-being is first and foremost on my mind for sure. And I know that of the minds of my colleagues around the table. I'm just going to digress briefly to point out that many of you have already completed the survey that was sent out a week or two ago of UMaine and UMaine Machias staff. And the responses are coming in. We don't yet have a full report on this survey, but I want to thank everyone who has responded so far. It's extremely helpful for us to know what's on your mind. And I'll just hit a couple of the highlights. At this point, relatively good response in terms of satisfaction with communication, although continued interest, of course, in how frequently we can update. Jeremy gave you websites. We know there are lots of places to look, and sometimes that can be frustrating. But the other thing that we're doing is a Friday publication every week, and have been for several weeks now, called for Friday Futurecast. But it is including information and links, and you may look there as well. The biggest concerns coming through so far, and I thought this was pretty interesting. It says, when asked to rank the top 3 things UMaine and UMaine Machias can do to make you feel more comfortable returning to work, the most popular so far in what has come in were allow employees to continue to work remotely if work is conducive to doing so. And lots of people making that point. And again, Chris and I have talked about how that can work going forward. So please do be speaking with your supervisors about that. Second is requiring face coverings, and we are. I hope we've been clear enough about that. That is required. You heard Melissa speak in great nuanced detail about how required it is. It means no cup of coffee when you are in a public classroom with your peers. It's within areas that have been designated for eating and drinking. So that's very serious. There's a related question, and I'll turn it to Robert, that basically has to do with what if people don't comply? Like, what do we do if we see our colleagues or our students, even our visitors from off campus perhaps? We'd like to have some advice from Student Life on that.
Well, we have put up some information on the in the FAQ Return to Campus website. Of course, we consider everything we're doing to be a persuasion campaign. And that is, we believe faculty, staff, and students have each other's backs, and UMaine is kind, caring, compassionate place. So we're expecting the vast majority of people to be pretty well educated even before they arrive, and certainly with all the materials that are out there. And we're hoping that most people do it. In the cases where people don't do it, we'll be adding a lot of signage on campus. We're having this language put forward to off-campus students and on-campus students to talk about the Black Bear Pact, to talk about Black Bears caring, that there's an expectation, and we'll give language to interact with people. It's not confrontation, it's not put up your dukes, it's not a vigilante situation, and if somebody doesn't feel comfortable asking somebody to wear a mask or to do some other behavior, we'll have anonymous reporting portals into student life, or anybody can certainly call us, and we will be happy, whether it's a staff member sending somebody forward, a faculty member, or another student to have initial, I'm going to call them deaning discussions with people. But in the case where people are scofflaws, if that's the correct word, and they don't want to do it, there's an expectation. And if somebody ends up having to be separated from UMaine, it'll be a horrible tragedy, but we would be in a position to do that if somebody doesn't want to work to keep everybody safe.
Thanks, Robert. There are a number of testing questions that I'd like to touch on. Mostly the ones for right now have to do with faculty and staff who themselves, for one reason or another, will feel the need to be tested, or in terms of their own schedules, people who need to take their own children away to school and so forth will need to be tested. I'm assuming the best advice for such individuals is to be in touch with Dick Young. Is that fair, Dick?
Yes, yeah, they can email me and we'll look at the situations and we'll make sure we take care of the ones that need to be taken care of.
Try to accommodate. Again, flexibility all the way through. Question about blind individuals and how they will be able to read signs, and I'm assuming we're working with ADA compliance on all of our communications. Robert?
Yes, I'm sorry, I had a little perturbation there on the internet. Can you say it again?
It's about, in particular, how blind individuals will be able to know about the signs.
Yes, accessibility support services will be assuring that all of the signage is accessible to sighted and not people with sight reduction or non-sighted people. And that'll all be accessible through the websites, and everybody will have equal access to all the information. And if there are other questions about accommodations, that is from a mask wearing perspective, seeing the signage, engaging with the website, accessibility support services is up and running and ready to address every single question.
Okay, several questions on the face coverings, beginning with, this isn't about the face coverings directly. Does signing the pledge remove liability from UMaine? That's not the intention of the pledge.
No, it isn't. So the Black Bear Pledge is sort of a piece of the public health campaign we're running, but it's not designed to reduce our exposure. I'm pretty confident, and I think everybody here would be, that, you know, we're dealing with very horrific virus, and we're doing everything possible to be reasonable, prudent, sound, and safe. And it's going to take the whole community. I mean, we can't just do it by signage, by hoping, by expecting one or two people to be part of it. If we're all part of it, I think we'll make great strides. So it's a shared responsibility, and if we all want to be back, and I think our students largely want to be back, so everything we can do together, and I think we should do it together. So talking to each other, sharing our anxieties, sharing our concerns, asking questions, all that will help us do it better.
So that could have been the answer to a few of the questions that I'm now about to repeat, but you may want to add more, and I'll add a bit too. What if persuasion doesn't work for a student in class who refuses to wear a mask? If a student refuses to wear a mask, do we hold class or do we go home? So Alumni Hall needs to give a definitive answer on this. Can we ask a student to leave a class if they refuse to wear a mask? What if students walk out because another student refuses to wear a mask? Will they be the ones who get penalized? These are very thoughtful, realistic questions, obviously coming from people who know students and who know what we may be expecting. It's quite straightforward. Masks are required. Face coverings are required. We will try every possible persuasive technique, as Robert has outlined. We will count on each other to share what works and what doesn't work. But in the end, if a student refuses to wear a mask in your classroom, as I understand it, you should then send that student away and send them to student life. Robert?
Yes, and we've Dr. McGinnis has given us a very wonderful statement to put on the syllabi. can be an addendum to the syllabus. I think Provost Gilbert's going to send that to all faculty by the end of the week. And that sort of immortalizes it once it becomes policy, and then it's placed on the syllabus. Faculty will have the right to expect that students are wearing face coverings. And it's true for every staff member too. If somebody were to come into a business space without a mask, absolutely they can be asked to don a mask. And if the person attending to the person doesn't feel comfortable, you can always call on Student Life staff. So we'll support you immediately.
There's a related question about restricting visitors to only essentials, such as vendors. It's very difficult to restrict visitors, as we are a public university and a public campus, and it's beyond vendors. There are many people who make use of our services, but our rules will apply. Masks will be required, distancing will be required. I don't know if there's anyone who wishes to add to that. Again,
I would say all contractors and all vendors are getting the information delivered to them, both about the Black Bears Care Plan, but also about the expectations about face coverings. And certainly where you see it's not happening, please certainly call us. We can call facilities, we can call the police, even in really complicated situations.
there was a question referring to a previous meeting where there was a dashboard mentioned that would show numbers of cases, available anonymized information. Similar question about could we do something similar to what the CDC is doing by county for the state. Stay tuned on this. These are active discussions about how that kind of notification will be made public, but we're committed to as much transparency as we can manage with all of the other considerations that go with that transparency. There are a couple of questions that I've had repeatedly, and I'd like to take them together. And then toward the end, by the way, folks, we will do a quick roundtable if there's anything anyone on the line hasn't gotten to say. We should hear from Dan Qualls. But here's one. What is the plan as of now for the fall semester as far as breaks, the number of months we are on campus, et cetera? And what would warrant an emergency shutdown, and how would that process be put into effect? And then there's a related question that I get repeatedly that I just think I should take up here too, which is how many positive tests on a campus will be required to send everyone home? So as you might expect, some of this I can answer very clearly, and some of it's going to be an it depends, and it's complicated kind of answer. And I think we need to be ready to be compassionate and flexible all the time. But on the fall schedule, the fall semester begins as scheduled on August 31st. We have made the decision as a system to move to remote instruction following Thanksgiving. So we'll be in session through the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, but everything would be remote thereafter. The holidays for the fall semester will be observed, but we won't be taking the fall break. That is the second day after Indigenous Peoples Day. Will be a class day. Have I missed anything on schedule, Faye?
There are two other holidays that I'm not going to be able to bring to mind because they just left my mind, but you're right, Indigenous Peoples Day, and then on Tuesday that week we come back to class. So there are only 3 days with the message being don't go anywhere. I mean, just stay with your community and have things to do here.
That's right. And this question about sort of how many cases until we close and what are our plans for closing? Well, I remind everybody that we did close, not as efficiently or smoothly or effectively necessarily as we would have liked back in March. And ever since then, we've reflected on how that went. We've talked about what we would do should we need to do it again. There are these planning groups that are in place that are not just looking at how to get us restarted, but looking at what we might need to be prepared for as the semester goes on. And to the question of number of cases, it's absolutely not about number of cases. I'll turn to Melissa in a minute, who will tell you what constitutes an outbreak, and that's a really small number under particular conditions. What we will look at will be the context in which that would happen, where those cases occur, what the interactions among those individuals and others has been, what our capacity is in the system to manage that outbreak and others, not just within the university, but in our local healthcare providers as well, and what the modeling tells us about likelihood of of further spread, the state of the epidemic in our areas at that time. All of those factors would go into what would be a decision that could be made quite rapidly if it needed to be. But at this point, we aren't going with the, X number of cases triggers Y. We will look at this in context. Melissa, care to add to that?
Sure. President Ferrini-Mundy did a beautiful job explaining all of the factors that would weigh into that decision. And the Maine CDC defines an outbreak as 3 related cases. So there have to be 3 cases on campus that are related, meaning that those individuals were interacting, not that they were completely individual cases. And like President Ferrini-Mundy said, we would look at how those cases may have actually occurred. We would look at the relationship between them. We would observe the community prevalence, what's going on in the local hospitals. All of those factors would weigh into the decision, as well as mathematical modeling and other science-based efforts. I think that it's really important to point out that the university did close in March when there weren't any cases. And in fact, there weren't any cases in Maine, and it was 100% the right decision. And it ensured the safety of everybody on our campuses, as well as those in our state. And I think that the university would be prepared to continue to protect everyone on our campuses and within our communities.
Absolutely. I'm going to turn to Dan Qualls and then do a quick last round. We've got some unanswered questions. We'll work out answers and get those posted as soon as we can. Dan?
I would just add that we've been working hand in hand with our colleagues at the University of Maine and the UMaine system. And so what we're doing at the University of Maine at Machias is basically the same, just at a smaller scale. This week, I know we're wrapping up the classroom arrangements and the exit-only, entrance-only signs. Our new director of facilities, he hit the ground running, I think, 4 weeks ago, and it's really been shaping up.
Great, thank you. I'm going to go now to those who haven't had a chance to comment. Kimberly.
Sure, thank you, President. I just want to say thanks to everyone for all of the efforts that they have put forth in ensuring that our campus is prepared for everyone to return. As I was driving along this weekend, I saw continuously the sign that says we're in this together. So I just want to remind everyone that we're in this together. So thank you for tuning in today.
Thanks, Kimberly. Ken.
Hi, everybody. While we're not going to be playing games this fall, we are going to be actively working with our students, going through our normal practice protocols, but in smaller groups and socially distanced and masked. If anybody has been over Memorial Gym, you've seen our basketball teams participating over there. Looks a little bit interesting watching the students in the gym, socially distanced and masks and going through drills. But it's a great example of how, if we're thoughtful about this, we can follow the protocols and keep everybody safe. Our sports medicine team has been doing a wonderful job of making sure that our students are checked on their way into the building and that we're doing all the right things. And I really appreciate the efforts the coaches have made to ensure that our students recognize the responsibilities they have when they come back. Our students will be practicing with their teams when they come back for the start of the school year. They're also going to be involved in a number of different activities around campus so they can maximize this time. And we're looking forward to some new opportunities for our students that they might not normally get when they're participating in their season. So we're going to find ways to make the best of this. We're going to find ways to create fun new content for everybody to keep up with Black Bear sports. And one of the things we're going to try to do is keep the best possible attitude so we can come out of this with some momentum for once we get through this and we're back to playing on a regular schedule. So we're excited about that.
Thank you, Ken. Jeff Mills from the UMaine Foundation.
We're continuing to fundraise. We are wrapping up all of our comprehensive fundraising campaign. And for those of you that haven't had a chance to drive on campus and go over and see the new Ferlin Center, it's under construction now. So we're very pleased to see that. Also want to thank our faculty, staff, and administrators campaign for all of you that have given through that. And also to the Student Crisis Campaign. We appreciate all of your help, all of those things. And we'll continue to move forward the best we can as we go through this next year.
Thanks, Jeff. Clara Strickland, our Chief Business Officer.
Thank you, President Ferrini-Mundy. I just want to state that I appreciate the fact that we're relying on the science and moving forward. And I so appreciate all the subcommittees, all the committees that have been formed this past summer to try to keep our staff safe, our students safe, as we move towards the fall semester. Facilities management has done an outstanding job in making sure that we have the correct products on campus, the barriers, the signage, the sanitizers, increased custodian help, so that we can move forward as safely as we can. Thank you.
Clear. And then the last word, Chris Richards.
Thank you. I just want to applaud the creative thought of the entire University of Maine community throughout this process. These are unprecedented times, which means there is absolutely zero playbook to anything going on. And the team, the community collaborating across, whether it be academics, enrollment management, athletics, and everyone really has put tireless effort into creating all these policies that are being discussed. And I really do believe our plan will work as long as we all buy into it and support it and support each other through this pandemic. And I can't wait to see more staff, faculty, and especially our students back on campus.
And last word, Cody, because I missed you, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So I just briefly want to mention that with regard to our research enterprise, over the last number of months, we have been gradually opening our operations on campus and in fieldwork type of research. We are in our what we call phase 3. At the same time, we have processes and procedures in place so that hopefully if things get even better, then we can further open up, or if we have to kind of make some changes, we are all ready to do that. And similarly, it's the same situation with our graduate programs and graduate studies and the graduate students who are coming to our campus this fall. And which, by the way, we are going to have a record number of graduate students joining us.
That's right. Our record number is even improving the system's record number, and it's great. Listen, everyone, I cannot thank you all enough. Those of you who are on the panel and those of you who are the participants out in the field here on this call, for your great efforts, for your good ideas. Keep your questions coming. The best thing you can do is let us know what you're worried about, your ideas, the concerns that you have, so that we can bring them to these planning groups and get them addressed, and try to keep people as informed as we possibly can as we go forward. Thank you again. I look forward to seeing many of you in the coming weeks. Thank you.